The person most willing to walk away has the most power.
You're listening to Let Me Speak to a Manager with Frank Cava and Ian Mathews.
What a crock of shit.
Yeah, that was hot mic, Sam.
It's 30 minutes away. I'll be there in 10.
Do it live! I'll write it and we'll do it live!
Frankie!
You son of a bitch.
Frankie! I am excited to talk today about the word no, because you say no to me all the time on all my great ideas for this podcast. So you are going to enlighten all of us on how to do it with such aplomb.
Yeah, I'm the one who says no. I got a call yesterday from a guy that used to work.
We should really have our wives on this teaching us a thing or two about that.
I had a guy who worked for us like 4 years ago. He moved to North Carolina chasing a girl. He had to go see about a girl, and he came back, and I was talking to him, and he called. I texted him or left him a message, and he calls me back. And when I did, I'm like, "Hey, what's up, man?" He goes, "Frankie, you son of a bitch." And I was like, does that mean you're still listening to the podcast? He goes, "Every week, brother, every week."
That's great. That's great. Let's get him a t-shirt. Let's get him a t-shirt. So I am hearing more concerns, I guess, from managers because we're kind of going on year 3 of crappy real estate market. I think a lot of people were hoping this year would open up. It's really not that much better on the construction side, at least, new construction. And I've seen this play out in every bad market and in multiple industries, not just real estate, but you get deeper and deeper into a tough market. And it starts with what's wrong with our sales team. Then the managers start to realize maybe it's not just the sales team. Maybe the market is this way. Then it starts to be, all right, tell us what we need to do to make a deal, right? Tell us, don't lose a deal. Is it price? Do I need to kick in a little extra? Right now, some of the home builders are putting in 14 to 17% incentives to get deals closed. That's publicly traded reports. And so that doesn't happen overnight. That happens slow cooked, boiling the water, starting off with a point, then I'll give 2 points. And as the results keep coming in less than desired, you keep giving and giving and giving. But what happens to a sales force then is they get wise to that. And then they start using, it's not just price, but then it's, can we go outside of our process? Can I get a furniture letter? Can we close this even though they haven't changed their utilities over yet? And we'll get that later. And you start to see exceptions everywhere. Maybe you're not holding your trades as accountable as you used to. Maybe you're not following the same process you used to. You're letting realtors come to contract signings. You're doing a lot of things that are just against process. And it starts to become more and more questionable on whether they're necessary or whether your sales force just doesn't want to hold the line anymore. And they're not comfortable. They've gotten comfortable asking for the exception, and they're not polishing the skill of saying no, and saying no in a way that the customer will accept it and not say, well, let me talk to your manager.
Let me speak.
Also the name of this podcast.
Let me speak to your manager.
Yes.
So I think I've seen this movie many, many times, and I work in a different side of the business than most of Ian's consulting clients who are selling. I'm a buyer, but it's the same stuff. What happens is this: during boom times, who you hire and the skill set of people that you bring into the company is very different than who you need during markets like now. The candy shop has been closed for some time, and fantasy camp is over, and it's not just taking orders. Now it's you actually need to have skills. And what I have noticed in this process is, first and foremost, you got the wrong people in the seat. You just do. They're the wrong hires for this type of market. You need someone who's gritty and hungry and can kind of see around corners and who wants to be in this market. in my line of work, what happened in this market is a lot of people are on to something else. They're trading crypto, or they're doing, some new online business, or they're doing something else. Like most of the people who I compete with have just gone away because this has gotten a lot harder. This isn't like a fundamental trade anymore where the market is, the housing stock is below replacement value. It's a different market. So that first is to get the wrong people in the wrong seats. Second, people start to fall out of love, or they're more honest with they don't love their product. They don't love what they're selling. They don't love where they're positioned, how they're priced, and they lose confidence in it. So what they do is there's number one, they're the wrong people. And then number two, they don't believe they have the right product, price, and positioning. And because of that, they start looking for excuses, and they start trying to do things to kind of empathize with or support the customer. And they get away from the fundamentals that made them great salespeople to begin with, or made the process a great process to begin with.
That's an incredible summary. I will say that there's also a misunderstanding often that somehow saying no is less empathetic than saying maybe. You want to be seen as a customer advocate, and no sounds unfriendly. It sounds like someone who's not interested in being helpful. And so you don't want to say it. You don't know how to say it. You don't know how to deliver the message. You don't know how to be empathetic while also saying we can't do that. And yes, oftentimes I agree with you, Frank. It's hard to know who your talent is in a candy shop market. 2004, 2005 housing market, 2021, 22. Who knows? How do you even tell who your good salespeople are when you can blink at anyone and you have lines waiting out the door and you can name your price and you're going to get it? So I agree with you there that some reps are going to get exposed when the tide comes out. But I'd also say there's an element of Rocky 3 where Mickey is talking to Rock and he says,
Not
"Hell,
the
you ain't
ultimate man versus the ultimate meatball."
No, not that scene. Just after that scene where he says, "Mr. T is, I'm not taking that fight with Clubber Lang." And Mickey, his trainer, says, "You ain't been hungry since you won that belt. It's all been cupcakes," right? And I think that's what Mickey was doing. He was protecting Rocky. They weren't fighting the best fighters, and Rocky got soft. Rocky was still the right guy. He was still the champion. He still had all the skills. He hadn't had to use them in so long that when he finally fought a great fighter, he got his ass kicked. And I think that can happen if you go through a market where you get, what did we have in construction? We had a good decade run there where the wind was kind of at your back. You had low rates, you had low supply, you had high demand, great jobs. And so I think even talented people, good negotiators, got comfortable in a good market. And then the market shifts downturn and you're making exceptions left and right. And so now even in that market, you're not forced into having a difficult conversation, forced into negotiating. Your sales manager gives you everything you want to get the sale. I think you can lose your edge. I think you can, Rocky 3 that keeps talking about the eye of the tiger. I think a lot of sales forces have lost the eye of the tiger because it's easier to go ask for an exception than to go deliver difficult news, than to not give the customer everything they want.
So since 1981, from 1981 through 2021, we are in a falling interest rate environment. So if you were a professional in 1981, you were born in, the late 50s or early 60s. So you're someone in your 60s or 70s. If you were in a marketplace where you did not have falling interest rates to help you. right? You could always refinance. You could always do something else because rates were typically coming down. Now, there were spikes in there, but most of the time it was a falling interest rate environment. So the fundamentals have changed quite a bit. The other thing that tends to happen is, have you ever gone skydiving?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How many times have you gone?
Once.
Okay. So do you know what the worst skydive is? The second one. And the reason for it is it's fucking terrifying to skydive. It's terrifying. We've talked about it before. Like you're with the instructor. My instructor fell asleep. I finally felt like comfortable. But what happens is they take a video and you pay $50 or $100, whatever it is nowadays, and they give you a video of it. And you watch the video 100 times. And what you remember is the video. Like the video, there's no nerves. It's whitewashed. You're just watching the highlights of it. And you jump out and you're like, this is awesome. So you go a second time and you forget how unbelievably terrifying it is. Because in your head, it's just a video now. It's not the thing. And the second time you do it, you're like, everything happened. The sphincter tightens up just like it did the first time because that door opens and you're jumping out of a perfectly good airplane and you realize in 5 minutes I could be dead. So that's what ends up happening is you just get so comfortable with watching the video and believing the highlights of what you've done, you forget about the work. And that is real. Like there are real fundamental skills that you must have in any environment. Sometimes they get whitewashed out and the market will kind of separate and people get lazy or forget the skill set or believe the hype video. And then when they need to actually utilize the skills, they don't have them because they have just either allowed them to erode or they've never developed them in the first place.
So Frank and I believe that any business situation, sales, operation, finance, marketing, can be explained from a scene from either Godfather 1 or Godfather 2. Is that fair, Frank? Pretty much.
There's a few others in there, like we can throw in a little bit of Mad Men. We can throw in a little bit of like Better Call Saul.
Godfather 1 and 2 covers 95% of the world. It's kind of like the ocean. There's more blue. There's more Godfather than green when you look at a map. I think that's pretty fair.
There's plenty of other options, but you can really get it done in the Godfather.
Well, you could get it done with the Godfather if you only had 2 movies to bring to the table. So there is a fantastic scene from Godfather 1, but in this scene, a gangster by the name of Salazzo, and this is the turning point of the movie, a gangster by the name of Salazzo is asking Don Corleone, the most powerful gangster in the country in the mafia, for his backing support with his politicians and to make an investment in his drug enterprise. And drugs are just now becoming a big deal. When does Godfather 1 take place? What year? Like what?
It was filmed in the early 70s, but it's supposed to be late 40s, early 50s.
Late 40s. That's what I was going to guess, late 40s. So drugs are just now becoming big, but at the time, the drugs were not a real big staple of what the mafia was into. They were more into, booze running and gambling and, other vices. Drugs they don't like. So in this scene, drug gangster is asking Don Corleone, will you partner with me? So we're going to play it, and then Frank and I are going to talk about
before you hit play.
Mechanic.
Are you gonna play the part where Sonny speaks up?
It's all there, yes.
All right, I want to say something real quick. So what Ian set up is really important, but there's something else too. Don Corleone is the father. He's the person that has all the skills. His son is someone who's rising through the ranks and doesn't have the same school of hard knocks approach. He was born into it. So some of the things that Don Corleone does as a matter of course and as just a matter of like, it's part of his DNA because he grew up with it. The younger generation misses. Someone who comes into the housing business in the last 20 years has the wind at their back, unlike the old school guy who had to really earn their stripes before interest rates were falling. So if you think of it from that perspective, there's multiple things happening.
Yep. Awesome.
I need a man who has powerful friends. I need $1 million in cash. I need, Don Corleone, those politicians that you carry in your pocket, like so many nickels and dimes.
What is the interest for my family?
30%. In the first year, your end should be $3-4 million. And then it would go up.
And what is the interest for the Italian family?
That's
Your compliments. I'll take care of the detalles. Out of my share.
So I received 30% for finance, political influence, and legal protection. That's what you're telling me.
That's right.
Why do you come to me? Why do I deserve this generosity?
If you consider $1 million in cash, just finance. To salud, Uncle Corleone.
I said that I would see you because I heard that you were a serious man to be treated with respect. But I must say no to you. And I'll give you my reason. It's true, I have a lot of friends in politics. But they wouldn't be friendly very long if they knew my business was drugs instead of gambling, which they regard as a harmless vice. But drugs is a dirty business.
Oh, Don Corleone.
It doesn't make any difference to me what a man does for a living, you understand? But your business is a little dangerous.
If you're worried about security for your million, the detalles will guarantee it.
Oh, are you telling me that the detalles guarantee our
Wait a
investment?
minute. I have a sentimental weakness for my children, and I spoil them, as you can see. They talk when they should listen. Anyway, Senor Salazzo, I know it's final, and I wish to congratulate you on your new business. I know you do very well, and good luck to you, especially since your interests don't conflict with mine. Thank you.
So good. I can watch that scene 1,000 times. So even as a wrap up at the end is so smooth. If you are not watching that, you should be watching us on YouTube to see that clip, but you can look that clip up. Godfather, Don Corleone says no to drugs. Type that in and you'll get that scene. So for you, when you watch that scene again, every time I watch it, I see something new, but what's like the overarching thing that makes Corleone special in that scene to you?
Before what makes him special, I think the thing that stands out to me in this watching of it is how old guys often say no to old business, right? You're protecting legacy and you're protecting what you've already done, and you're not always open for growth. The younger crowd is into the growth. The up and comer who doesn't have the $1 million in cash is looking at like, how can you say no to this amount of money? Now, he said your return's 30%. I'm not a math wizard, but 30% of $1 million is 300 grand, and he's going to get 3 million in year one. It's a 300% return. It's an incredible return, but Corleone is looking at what he could possibly lose, not what he could gain. So that's one. Two, the thing that Corleone does incredibly well, I think, is he delivers a balanced series of reasons of why he thinks he should say no, and he's incredibly diplomatic about it. And in the end, ultimately, they try and kill him because he says no to this business idea. But the way that he handled it was very professional, wishing him well. It was a very gracious no. It's someone who in his life had been told no many, many times and has learned how to synthesize that and repeat that back to somebody in a way that is non-offensive and is, incredibly diplomatic is my thoughts.
If you're watching it on the screen, the Don gets up from his chair. He's across from him. He stands up, slowly walks over, grabs a bottle of booze, pours the guy a shot, boots his son out of the chair. Boots his son out of the chair, who was sitting next to Salazzo, and sits next to him and leans in. So he doesn't just say no, go to hell. It's very intimate. It's personal. He wants him to know that this isn't anything against you. It's the idea. So starting with that, there is a high degree of empathy if you're watching the scene when it happens. He's very polite and he says, I agreed to meet with you because you're a serious man. And I see that. And then this is the no that is just a very objective. here are my reasons behind it, right? So he says, I must say no to you, and I will give you my reason why. And I love that. So if you are in sales, if you are in customer service, that is such a powerful line. That line works in the 1940s. It works in 2026. I must say no to that request, and I'm going to tell you why. Instead of, let me talk to my manager. Hey, I'm not sure. I'm going to have to look into it. That's not empathy. That's softness. That's weakness. He's saying no, and he's telling you the business reason, which is a really powerful one. Frank just said it. I have all the politicians in my pocket, and I won't have those politicians when they find out I got into drugs. They won't be able to support me. And as soon as I lose my politicians, I lose my gambling rackets, I lose my alcohol running,
All my
I
other cash
lose
cows.
I lose my prostitution stuff, all things that my politicians are definitely cool with. They're cool with booze, they're cool with prostitution, they're cool with gambling because they're all in my establishments. They're not cool with drugs. And so he explains it in a way where he's saying, you're asking for something I can't do. And this objective one, when I was in the mortgage business, we charged ancillary fees. It's maybe 30% of how you make money on a mortgage. You junk fees, call it whatever, processing fee, underwriting fee, all of that. And people are trained. Their realtor trains them. Ask for them to waive the junk fees. People were asking from the first loan application. And it was one of the things that we trained the most on, was explaining this piece. And I would always just tell them, listen, those aren't junk fees. Do we have processors in this office? I would ask the loan officer when we were training. Yes. How many do we have? 16. Do you know what I pay a processor? Let's start doing the math on what a processor costs. I got to put them in an office. I have to pay their salary. I have to pay their benefits. They get overtime. These are real expenses. Do underwriters come for free? And I would go through every one of the expenses behind all of that. And I would say, are you for free? Do you do this for free? No, you have a commission. There's a fee. I have to pay you. So are you willing to work for free for this customer? Then why are you asking me to waive it? And so when we would explain it to a customer, we'd say, we'd have to say, no, we don't waive those fees. We're going to be working on your loan for the next 5 months while we build this house. Our processors will work on your loan every month. They will probably submit this loan 3 or 4 different times. There are real expenses behind doing your loan, and it's how we stay in business and make a profit. That's the very objective, Don Corleone. I must say no to you, and I will give you the reasons why. We're running a business. Those fees cover our expenses.
You use this clip, so I'll ask you a question. In this particular clip, why does it ultimately lead to Don Corleone getting shot?
Well, it's the mafia, and ultimately, if Don Corleone won't help, they didn't have a lot of alternatives. And he had such a corner on the market with all of those politicians that the upstart was afraid that as long as Corleone was there, he wasn't going to be able to get the business. So greed is really, I think, what drives the whole movie turning on the assassination attempt on Corleone.
So I actually think it's something different. Maybe you're right. Maybe it's more nuanced. I actually think the reason that they go after him is because now they know the business model and they're exposed. And because Sollozzo is exposed, he feels like he has to protect himself on the downside, and he goes after and shoots this guy. Where I think Corleone could have done something different is offered an olive branch. Now, it's the mob. They don't offer a lot of olive branch in the mob, but my thoughts are most people that are listening to this, almost everyone, if not all of them, aren't actually in the mob. So if you offered an olive branch, what does that look like in the movie? Maybe I can offer a little bit of help. Maybe I can offer a little bit of protection. Maybe I can say no to the deal, but I can give you something else in its place. The reason I think that's relevant to what we're talking about here is you may hear a no, or you may have to deliver the no, but how do you pivot the no into something else that's an olive branch, right? It can turn into getting shot in the mob. It can turn to someone walking out of your model and not getting a deal. hey, I can't do this particular thing, but can I ask you a series of questions as to why you'd ask for that? That now turns into, Ian talked about with the junk fees, but if you look at it from this perspective, like that turns into a conversation of what led you down this road, and let me get to what's really important for you as a buyer or a seller. And then I can start to work on those types of things. Can you give me a cash advance? Is a question I get all the time from people. And the answer to that is, no, I will not. Why? But let me ask the question, what do you need the cash advance for? I need a cash advance because I need to get into an apartment and I don't have the money for that. Okay. If you'll sign a contract with us, we can do it in ink. And if you'll take a loan out with us, we will write the check for you to the apartment complex that you're going to. That's a way to work around it with strength that gives you ultimately what you need, but it gives us an olive branch to hand you, but it keeps control with us versus me just writing you a check. Because I've done that 1,000 times, and what ends up happening is it pays your cell phone bill and all these other things, and it doesn't actually go to what it needs to be. But it comes from experience, and it comes from asking the right follow-up question that gets me to a place where I can actually help solve your problem.
I love that. What you're talking about also is trade-offs. So, you know, let's say someone asks for, hey, would you waive the lot premium on that house? Would you waive the lot premium? I don't want to pay $100,000 for a lot premium. Okay, I thought that was important to you to be on the water. We only have so many of those lots and we have high demand for them. So I'm hearing from you that price is important. Let's look at some more affordable options. No, I didn't say that. I want that lot and I want that price. Well, how can I do that? We only have 7 left of those. If price is what matters to you, we're going to have to look at a different lot or a different home type. But I can't just waive a lot premium when we have so much demand on those lots in the first place. That wouldn't be fair to everyone else who are gladly paying that to be on the water, right? So we're talking trade-off now, but I'm starting with labeling why you're asking me. I'm hearing from you that price is important. So if someone were to ask for junk fees, let's say waived, I'm hearing for you that cash out of pocket is important. There are some options that we could do. How long do you plan to be in the house? What if your payment was slightly higher and we could pay for some of that with a higher interest rate so that you pay nothing at your closing costs? Is that something you'd be interested in doing? I'm offering a trade-off. I'm listening to you. I think I'm hearing from you that you don't want to spend your cash. You'd like to use more of it to buy furniture or paint your house or whatever you're doing. So if cash to close is important, can we look at some other options that might alter your mortgage payment? It could be an ARM, it could be fixed, it could be paying some premium, but it's going to bring less cash out of pocket. That's what I'm hearing from you. And now they can say no, but you're trying to put a label on why they are negotiating with you in the first place. So I can try to solve the same problem, but it's not going to look the exact same. And it's definitely not going to come where we lose money.
So if you as a sales manager are struggling to manage a sales rep in a model, and different scenario than Ian, but let's use the same example, lot premiums. What I have learned with this is most sales managers dictate the lot premiums to the sales reps versus walking into the model home, sitting down with the sales rep and laying out the lot premiums together. So a big part of that is, do I believe in my product, or do I think my manager is coming from Mars? And if I am part of the process of setting the lot premiums, understanding the lot premiums, knowing the big picture on the lot premiums and saying, look, we have to make X number of dollars from this neighborhood, however we want to slice that up. And then what you do is you lean into the skills of the salespeople. Okay, if you don't think this is worth 100, but you think it's worth 75, do you think there's something that I have undervalued that you could sell up, which gives you an opportunity? So there's 100 ways to get to the same place, but you have to think about, like, who's the person sitting here? Who's my face talking to the public? Do they have the skill set to do what Ian did? Or do I need to look at a different alternative to get the same answer, but give them a chance to come about it from a slightly different way as long as I get the same net? So there's a bunch of ways to get about it, but it just comes down to How do you want to structure it, put it together? How do you want to manage it? And you get buy-in from the person who's your face with your customer.
I really like that. Did you ever do that when you worked at MBR? Did you ever go to the sales reps? Did you have that ability to do it or go to it? Or is that something you've done more now since you're an owner?
So I have 3 experiences with this. So I remember sitting in a model being dictated to on the law premiums. I remember getting promoted to production manager or sales manager and getting involved in setting premiums and coming up with it myself and then dictating it to somebody. And then I saw in some instances it works, in some instances it didn't work. And when I was just a sales manager, I'd walk in and say, okay, we want to try and make this. How do you think we should do it? It's the same thing. I've told the story here before where I now let whoever my selling realtor is finalize the selections and be involved in that process because I've screwed that up or I've dictated it and they weren't defending it. They didn't like it. So the more people that have buy-in, the more agency you're giving people, the more likely they're going to hold the line versus it just being something that's arbitrary.
I've talked about this before. There's a line that, and I'd be interested in how you might use something like this. It might be a little bit different, but in my consulting business, when I get asked, you know how I teach classes, I like to spread it out a little bit so they sink in and they practice more. But I do get asked this question of, will you come to, spend a couple days with my team? We're having an offsite. We're doing this. And I don't just say no to that. I'll say that the data says that you're not going to get a great return on that. And here's why. And then I'll try to use some of the psychology and the science behind the forgetting curve and the way the brain just doesn't process things and you can't put it into practice. But I like the line, the data says that you're not going to get a great return on hiring me to do that. And here's why I would suggest this. So it's a little bit like Don Corleone does, but I'm using a little bit more data behind it. I'm trying to use some science behind why this would be a better approach than what you're asking me for. This can also work when someone's asking for a cheaper option. And you say, based on, as an advisor and based on what I've heard you say, I don't think that's yes, you'll save money up front, but I don't think that that's going to solve the problem you're trying to solve by going with this more expensive option.
I think it also comes down to what is it that you ultimately want. And you know what you want really well. Like you and I are people who, we don't have bosses. We do what we want to do. And we get to kind of pick and choose those things. Like I had a conversation a few days ago with someone who runs a mastermind. And I used to pay for it. I've convinced him that I should be free, but I don't go very often. And he wants me to come. And I said, look, I'll come, but like, I don't get a lot out of it. He's like, well, what can I do for you? I'm like, I don't know, upgrade the group, which he's not going to do. That's just not his group. So like, I was like, okay, talk to me about the higher level people who were there. And the second person he mentioned was me. So I'm like, the bench is one person that I might be able to learn from. So we've got to change the dynamic of what it is. Like I can come and make a speech, but number one, it's got to be a place I want to go to. And number two, like I can't be coming out of pocket for it. Like I'm willing to come, but there's going to have to be some terms. And it's really easy to negotiate when you don't really care or you don't like that you have ultimate apathy. So you have to kind of understand where you're coming from and what do you want to get out of it. I saw something very, very interesting recently, and it was of all people, was Taylor Swift. And she was on the Heights podcast, which is the one her fiance is on with his brother. And what she said is, pretend your time is a currency. And I think like it was really interesting. Everybody knows this, but the way that she said it is, you have to put a value on the time you're going to spend doing something, and you have to understand what that time means to you. And most people don't value that. She's a performer who's worth $1 billion. She has figured this out. But how does that relate if you're in a model home? Well, let's think about it. Who are you spending your time with? Are you spending your time with the right prospects? Are you asking the right qualifying questions? Are you having time wasters on your hands, or you have people who are physically able to buy the house? when I was selling a discretionary second or third time move up, I had 2 or 3 questions that I would always ask that led me to, is this the right client for me to speak with and spend my Saturday talking to for an hour? Or is this someone who's just a dreamer that's in the model? And what you have to do as a salesperson on the front lines, I think you have to understand the qualifications first. Who deserves your time? Who deserves for me to focus on you? And then what are the things that we can do to get you over that hump? And do I feel comfortable with those things? So I think you say no a hell of a lot more if you have the wrong prospects and clients.
I think that's fair. I also think the person most willing to walk away always has the most power.
Yeah.
And that really depends on just how much one side needs the other or the not. And a couple of years ago, I did do a keynote, and it was local, and it was not long. It was an hour and a half. I had 90 minutes on someone's schedule in an already scheduled meeting. But they asked me like 6 weeks before I would have to do it, and they were kind of customizing it. It wasn't something canned coming out of it. And so my price was kind of high. But I was willing to not do it because I was looking at it. I'm like, this is gonna be a stressful 6 weeks. And I met with them. I got to meet with their CEO, their president. We talked about it. I gave my price. And I kind of got the sense that the CFO was behind the scenes trying to get my price knocked in half. And I finally was like, listen, I might just not be the right person for you. And I don't want to get into an argument, but this isn't 1 hour of my time that I'm charging you that number for. What you don't see is I have a really busy schedule. I'm going to be working 3-4 hours a night on this thing and weekends for the next 4 or 5 weeks. And I've got a lot of other things going on right now. I have to price it this way because I don't do anything half-ass. You're going to get an awesome presentation, very tailored to your company. It's the way I work. I understand if it's too much though. And I was ready when I said that. I don't care because I don't want it at the price that you're asking me for. Because even if they would have paid me peanuts, I'm wired that way where I'm still going to work those hours, whether you like it or not. And I ended up getting the deal without budging on price. But I didn't sound like a dick that was just like, and maybe I did sound like a dick. I don't know. But I wasn't trying to come across as, no, that's my price is my price. I was very polite and I wanted them to understand what was behind it. But I was also willing to walk away. And also what I knew was they didn't have a plan B. And they couldn't walk away. They had already sort of committed that they were going to have a speaker. And I could tell they were scrambling. Shit, if they needed Ian Mathews at that moment, they were obviously scrambling. So I knew that, one, you're a big ass company. You can afford my bill no matter what. But two, I also knew that they didn't really have another option that close. And I was their best option. And over what they were asking me to drop, they weren't going to walk away. So I was very polite about saying no thanks, but my price is my price. And I also gave them as good of an explanation as I could of why I have to price that way.
So I have two sides of the same coin. So as you know, I used to speak, I used to get paid to do, I help run a mastermind group, and I would have to make presentations from time to time. And what I learned is that an hour presentation would take me 40 hours to prepare. Mm-hmm. So an hour and a half, I would think probably took you 60 hours, which it's not like you can just stop what you're doing and just work for a week and a half on it. You have to squeeze it in, and it means you're taking away
it's mornings, nights, and weekends, right? It's
exactly right.
You know how this is.
Once I figured out that it took me 40 hours of time to build a presentation, I said no a lot more. I'll do it, no problem. Then I started realizing, like, this is a
stressful
metric ton of. I didn't care about the stress as much, but I started looking at, like, I'm at work on a weekend, I'm working a Saturday or a Sunday, doing something that's above and beyond what I'm being asked to do, and I'm missing time with my kids and my wife, and like, I'm not getting out of the house, I'm not going for a run, I'm doing these other things. So in time, I started to value my time, and I had a real quantitative number for how much time it was. Don Corleone knew point blank, I will lose these things if I do this. And that's why he ultimately said no, because he had measured it out already. The other side of it is this. I have someone I work with, you know him, and I pay him a pretty big number to work with him as a one-on-one client. And I remember he told me the number, and it's a big number. Like, it's a big number. And I remember my instinct was I should ask for a discount. I remember thinking it, like I was on a Zoom call sitting in this very seat, having a call with him. And I remember thinking, if this person is as valuable as I think they are, and I've been working with this guy for like 5 years, I don't want to start the relationship with, I'm asking you for a discount. And I remember having the sensation that I should ask, and I didn't say a freaking thing because I realized if I'm going to work with this guy, that's not the way I want the relationship to start. And the number he's telling me is a big number, but it's actually kind of worth it. And 5 years later, I still spend the money. So it's clearly worth it. So you have to kind of understand where you're coming from. And is it worth saying yes? Is it worth saying no? Is it worth fighting for price? Is it not? And I think we talked about this like a week or two ago. I think you said it with the grandparents, right? The interest rates were too high. Like, how old are the kids going to have to be? How tall are they going to be for it to justify the interest rate? You have to understand kind of where you're coming from, and you have to ground it back to what's the real need.
That's awesome, Frankie. Just stop there for 1 second. When you go back to the world of real estate, this ties into our last episode again. The person most willing to walk away has the most power.
Correct.
If you have done a loose ass job of getting to the need of why they have to buy this house, why they have to buy this car alarm, why they need this keynote, why
Whatever
they
the
need
product is
to hire me for training. I have a meeting this Thursday, it's tomorrow, with the CEO and the CFO of like a mid-size home builder. I'm going to spend most of that time asking, why do you want leadership training? Like, I'm not even going to talk price until they tell, like, what's going on? What's driving this? Why are you talking to me? What do your managers do well? What don't they do well? What pain does that cause for you when they don't do those things well? I don't know if I'm worth it or not. If you're telling me everything's great, yeah, maybe don't hire me. I don't know. But my goal is going to be to try to really understand what their situation is and what they're trying to solve. And I think it's the same if you're selling real estate. If you haven't gotten to that emotional need where that customer just, I gotta have this house, this lot, this community, I need it, I want it, they're the least willing to walk away. That's when you can hold the line and say no exceptions, and here's why. This is why. In the scene we showed you of the Godfather, he has all the power. It's easy for him to walk away. He's got the market cornered on all the other vice in the city. He's got all the politicians. The upstart has a lot more to, like, the upstart would have given him 80% if he would have really held his own. And I think it's the same for you. If you are negotiating, you are always going to be at the whim of a customer negotiating with you on price, tweaking, making exceptions. If you are doing a lousy job of understanding why they're buying in the first place, what's their status quo, and what are they hoping to solve for? If you don't know those things, if you don't know them powerfully, you'll always be in your sales manager's office asking for another exception. You're not doing your job. That's my rap, Frankie. You can rap with however you want.
I think you did a good job wrapping it. I think it comes down to the fundamentals of understanding who's in front of you and what's the real want and desire that they have. We had a conversation this morning on our team call, and I service the other side of the market. I'm buying houses versus selling houses. And what it really comes down to is, would you rather have that equity in your pocket and let it grow over time? Or would you rather have that money in your bank account for certainty? That's all it comes down to. And you have to figure out how you need to ask that question. As we're recording this, there's a ceasefire in Iran. Oil prices have dropped. Stock prices are up. Interest rates are down. Like, there's a bunch of good news, but there's a 2-week time frame on this. one of us could break the ceasefire. This could end at any second, and we're standing on a thin sheet of ice. So you have to kind of understand, like, what are the drivers? Why are you talking to me in the first place? And then what is the truly, really important thing for you? And then once we understand that, it's like, okay, now we can become a consultant, and now we can help guide you with information or whatever it is that you need to make the best decision.
And if you are a young, aspiring real estate owner and you want to be big and profitable like Frank one day, Frank does offer consulting services. You can reach out to him. He can go as far as spending a couple of days with his team, showing you the insides and outs of his company. You can hire him on an hourly basis. You can do all those kind of things. You're going to pay for that expertise. And it depends on how much of a return do I want? What kind of person do I use? I would highly recommend you hire Frank if you are someone like that, because he's been where you've been. He's been as small as 3 doors, and now he's as big as 400 doors. So, but if you want that, you're going to have to pay for that. You're going to have to pay for those hours as you go through. And if you are new to this, make sure you tell all of your friends, give us a 5-star review, a nice comment on Apple. And Frankie, thanks for not saying no to doing this episode today.
Always a pleasure, Ian.
See you, buddy.
See you, buddy.